So I decided to talk tonight instead of watching TV or listening to someone giving my energy away. I decided to actually orate tonight, be the talker. And I've been given a lot of thought to some of the things that are like the major focus or major issues, major struggles right now in the world. Some of the things that are happening currently around us, not close, but just around the world. One of the things that sticks out to me the most is this shift in power that's happening right now. This shift that's happening worldwide on a world scale, around the world, around power. And it's happening in the spirit realm. And so, of course, I have many favorite, authors, many favorite writers, favorites who inspire thought. And one of the people that inspired this discussion tonight is Zukov, one of my favorite writers. And I was listening to him a few days ago, and he was definitely hitting on some very powerful things that are relevant in this time. One of them that he hit on was about power and the difference between inner power and external power, the difference between authentic power and inauthentic power. And a lot of what we see in the world right now is a display of that external power, that inauthentic power, a lot of trying to usurp power outside of ourselves in, different ways. There's a lot of ways that we can do that instead of realizing our own internal power that we carry. And so that has been something that's been amazing to watch. Like as things in the news has been uncovered, like things being exposed, and how, this shift that's taking place is happening. It's a shift of power that's taking place right now, and justice is being served in a lot of ways. Things are being leveled out. People are being called to accountability as well. But I definitely wanted to talk about the concept of authentic power versus external power. Oh, my third eye is throbbing. So, what is the nature of power? I feel like that's a real question that we can ask just to kind of get clarity on what we're talking about. Because many times we function in everyday life and we don't put a name to what it is that we do, or we don't identify it with words, and we don't have to. I'm not saying that we need to, but I'm a lover of words, and I like to identify things in a way that I can understand them and make sense of them and kind of be able to refer back to them as I'm living life in reference to different things that I can learn from and draw from as I'm living and experiencing and learning. And so to ask that question is something that is definitely useful, because we need an understanding. Many times we're dying and perishing because we don't have understanding, we don't have knowledge. And so, I feel like that's definitely something that would add value to today, to this discussion, and something that's definitely needed. And so we have to learn to ask the right questions. So what is the nature of power? And what does it mean to truly be a powerful human being? What does that mean, right? Because the world teaches us what that means. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's true or that it is the proper way, but I can tell you what it's not, right? Being powerful, being a powerful human being is not having the ability to exert your will over another person. It's not having the ability to make someone do what you want them to do. That's not power. It's not power. Nor is it the inner sense of security in exerting your will over others, right? Whether that's mental or whether it's physical. Because there is a way that we draw out of other people and we usurp other people's power in order to secure ourselves. That's not true power. And if you are reaching towards anything outside of yourself to secure yourself, then that's not true power. It's not. And time is definitely a wake-up call, because time will cause this false sense of power to be revealed. And that false surface level that we can sometimes lean on, time will cause that to be revealed. And I don't care how muscular you are, how strong you are in the physical. Over time, strength fades. So you could be the most strongest person, on the block or in your family, but sooner or later, the time will come where someone will come along that's stronger than you, right? Especially as you get older. And, your strength is going to fade. We could talk about beauty as well. Beauty also fades. You can be the most beautiful person in the whole wide world. It only is going to last for so long because beauty fades with time. And then once your beauty and your strength fades, then what? Then what? And so to carry our power in our strength, right? Or in our physical strength, those aspects of who we are very surface level. And it's not true power. It's an illusion of power is what it is, because over time it changes and it's no longer what it was, say 20, 30 years ago. So that's not real power. A perfect example of this strength that fades and is an illusion, or strength that can be misleading, right? A perfect example is going back to the Roman Empire, which was one of the most powerful empires, who had one of the greatest armies. And, there was a quest that this Roman Empire had for power. And in their quest for power, they came across and they trampled over an individual. And they put that individual to death. And it was the underlying need to assert their power is what put the individual to death. But to this day, that person that they put to death, there is a humbling that is happening even as we speak. Because this person who they put to death, that we all know today, that the world knows at large, right? We know today as Jesus Christ, is still acknowledged, still uplifted, still admonished to this very day. And so the question arises, who really had the power? Who really had the power? It's not about appearance, and it's not about strength. See, power is only as good as that which it is willing to stand for. And so the question arises, what is it that you are willing to stand for? Is it money? Is it more cars? Is it a bigger house? Is it fame? Is it notoriety? Is it manipulation? All of these things are ego driven. It's all about the self. And it's the ego wanting to be satisfied and stroked. And we can all identify with these things, right? Let's just be real. We can all identify with those things. But what is it that you stand for is the question. That's the question. And then on the flip side of that, do you stand for peace? Do you stand for uplifting people and uplifting souls and doing things for the greater good of all? Do you stand for spiritual evolution of mankind and freedom and liberation and justice for everyone, equality for everybody? Do you stand for forgiveness and empowerment, right? All of these things are aligned with the highest expression of ourself, of our soul. And it is these things that point to a truly powerful, authentic person. And we're talking about what it means to truly be powerful, right? And so the second list of things that I named was aligned with a truly powerful personality, because it is outwardly seeking and not inwardly seeking. It's not ego driven. And it's looking at the whole, not just self, because anybody can please self. We all really want to do that. But it's also understanding that none of us live on an island alone. And things that we do affect everybody else around us as well, at large. And so it's understanding that and having reverence in a way that allows us to tap into the deeper understanding of why we're here and why we're not talking about emotions, but we're talking about reverence. And it's a way of being, not necessarily an emotion. And that way of being is realized through our heart space. And it's through that understanding and realization that we're able to experience this respect and this connection to everything and everyone, not just ourselves. But power is energy, and it's formed by the intentions of the soul. And when I say soul, I mean the most deepest parts of who we are, the most authentic, unshielded parts of our being, our highest self. And it's light. Power is light shaped by our intentions of love. It's compassion guided by wisdom. and it's energy directed by the fulfillment through the things that we do from that soul level. But it's guided by development of our personality connected to those tasks of the soul. Right? Let me explain that. Overall, what I'm saying is it's about being guided in aligning everything to our highest, to our deepest call in this life. Even who we are. When I say personality, I'm talking about who we are, the characteristics that we perform and carry out as we live, right? It's aligning everything that we are to aim towards the highest purpose placed on our lives. Yeah. In other words, it's when we step into fear, which is the opposite of what I just explained. It's when we step into fear that we lose power. And fear comes in many different ways. You know, fear could come in the form of losing someone close and dear to us, or losing something close and dear to us, like money, or the fear of dealing with certain situations that make us uncomfortable. You know, it's in these instances where fear is present, and that's where we lose power. Fear usurps power, and fear says that we see power as external. We see it as outside of ourselves, therefore we need to get it and make it ours. Fear doesn't allow us to see ourselves as powerful already. It causes us to see something outside of ourselves and to feel like we need it to feel safe. And because we need it to feel safe, we have to get it. It tells us, fear tells us that we lack that ability to provide safety for ourselves. And so it causes us to act out, you know, in ways to try to protect ourselves from something. Fear says that we're not able to provide for ourselves. So because of the fear, we reach out and try to manipulate to get what it is that we feel like we need from others. Because there is a fear that, you know, we're not able to provide it for ourselves. Fear says that you're not enough. Therefore, you have to exist outside of who you really are and who you really feel like you've been called to be, because you've not fully accepted yourself, and you don't believe that other people will accept you either. If you truly stepped out and lived the life the way that you feel like you've been, you know, called to live it. Fear takes power. Fear takes power, and it's through fear that we lose it, you know. And I've been talking a lot about our energy system and how we are tapping into knowing and feeling and being acquainted with our body whenever there is like a discomfort or pain, you know. That discomfort or pain in our body is like an indication of a loss of power, right? And if you're having, like, for instance, stomach pains or that discomfort in the stomach area, this is actually the area of our solar plexus. And in this area of our energy system, we hold our personal power here. And it holds how we execute in the world and how we get out there and get things done and make things happen, how we proclaim and take up space in the world. That's held right here. And so if there's stomach issues happening, it's a sign that there is a loss of power coming from this area, which is the solar plexus area. And as we've been discovering and learning, we've been going through the series, for the chakras. So if you've not checked it out, let me just put my little shot in there. If you've not checked it out, go ahead and head over and check my page out and check out that series that I'm releasing on the chakra system. If you haven't. Not only are we doing meditation mantras, but we're also going, into depth a little bit. We're diving in a little bit deeper to find out about how these energy systems function and operate in the body and how they relate to energy around us as well. And so the solar plexus is in the stomach area. And so there's a lot of organs that are there as well, a part of this part of our energy system, or this particular energy center. And what we understand as anxiety, for instance, is actually a loss of energy seeping out from this energy center. If it's in the solar plexus that you're feeling that anxiety, if it's felt in the stomach area, right? Or if it's felt in the heart area, in the heart center, it's a loss of energy seeping out of that energy. Wherever you're feeling it in your body, that's an indication of a loss of energy or power in that part of the energy system. That's what anxiety is. It's a loss of power, a loss of energy. Now, when it comes to an anxiety attack, which is much more extreme, that's a massive loss of power from your energy system, wherever it's being felt. And if it's in the stomach area, this can also show up as indigestion or stomach problems. If it's chronic or acute, it can actually lead to like ulcers. That's how powerful this energy loss is. So when we fear the love or the loss of it, we experience that pain around our chest area, right? That's around the heart chakra. And when we feel heartache, many of us have, right? We know what that feels like. That heartache is the fear of love or the distrust in this energy system, in this energy center. And not only heartache, but also like heart attack, right, is a loss of energy too. It's a loss of power in that energy system. And when we rage against others in anger, we're experiencing a loss of power. We're giving away our power when we actually distance ourselves because people have disappointed us, or maybe we're bitter or distrustful, like we're experiencing a loss of power there. We're giving away our power. If we feel threatened by someone, maybe we don't feel like that we measure up to them, we're giving away our power in that situation. And if we respond out of resentment, kind of like responding in, rage, it's the same. It's the same thing. It's giving our power away. And when we respond that way, under all these circumstances, there is the underlining energy of fear there. Fear of being vulnerable, or fear of not being able to cope without, something or someone. And this is what it means to lose power. And so, how do we get to authentic power then is the question, right? It's going through it, like whatever it is. It's not avoiding it. Going through it may be uncomfortable, especially when we feel threatened by others. But it's acknowledging that and understanding what needs to be done within ourselves so that we don't feel insecure, or so that we don't feel threatened, so that we don't feel that way. Yes, it's uncomfortable. When we feel like someone is leaving or separating from us, separating themselves, but it's understanding, hey, listen, I'm going to be all right. I was born into this world alone, and I'm going to die alone, And guess what? I'm going to be okay. It's going to be all right. It's going through it. It's facing whatever that fear might be. And the road to authentic power is going through it. Not trying to avoid it, not responding in a way that will cause us not to take accountability for our own actions, not trying to hold, someone else responsible for how it is that we feel or our situations in life, how we're experiencing life, but it's holding ourselves responsible for that. There's some things that we're meant to experience. And some of those things are very difficult things, very painful things. But it's through those experiences that we get to where we're supposed to be. We become who we're supposed to become through those things. Through the heart, not avoiding what it is that we feel or what we know. Through the heart, this is our way to authentic power, to inner power. And when we talk about the heart, I feel like the heart is very important when it comes to this process of coming into our power. One of my favorite scriptures is, out of the heart flows issues of life. And so I feel like the importance of the heart is understanding that the heart leads through compassion. The heart leads through emotional perception. It's not just an organ that pumps blood through the body, but it's actually a very important connected part of our being. It's a very necessary part of our being. Talking about the spiritual aspect of the heart, and it's purposeful. And so it doesn't serve us to suppress what's coming from it, the feelings, or to disregard the emotions, because they're happening for a reason. And they're connected in ways that are causing us, or causing everything to stay in balance many times. And so that saying, out of the heart flows issues of life, it's in the authenticity that we're able to not only send out, but understand that we're always drawing back as well. We're always drawing back to us what is desired, right? And so it's important to understand that what we're sending out, because if we send out anything other than strength and trust, then it's impossible to bring back love and power. It must be given first. An authentically empowered person doesn't release any energy unless it is released in strength, unless it is released in trust. And definitely a lesson that had to be learned, right? When you realize that the reason you're getting all this chaos and drama and negativity coming at you is because there's something that you have put out there, or there's something that you were sending out. That's a wake-up call that we all have had to have, right? And I think at some point in time, it's taking accountability for the energy that we are creating, because energy never dies. It just rotates, it recycles. That word cycle, right? Very relevant in this conversation, but it recycles. That means it never stops. It continues going around and around, and it comes back and goes and comes back and goes. And so when you find out that that's what's happening, you find out that the cycle of life is what is happening. Things become much easier when you understand that, and they become much clearer as well. Yes. Now, the characteristics, let's talk about that, of an authentically empowered person, an authentically empowered human being. Number one is humility. And when I say humility, I'm not talking about false humility. It's not surrounding yourself with people that you feel like are lower than you, or that you are more powerful than or greater than. That's not what I'm talking about when I say humility. It's not one where it's not that. It's humility is someone who is inclusive and who responds to the exclusive beauty of each individual soul. You're able to look at every individual for what they offer, for their personal contribution, and right? And in their exclusiveness, it's someone who is harmless and who reveres the beauty of life in all of its forms. In all of life, right? There is no no scales, right? It's no measuring going on. It sees beauty in everything, and it's harmless. Yeah, that's what it means to be humble, to have humility. It's not being a respecter of person. There was a meme that I used to love, and it said, I am a respecter, something to this fact. It was saying how I am a respecter of the janitor in the exact same way that I am a respecter of the CEO. And what it was saying is, like, I don't see the difference between the two, right? It's not being a respecter of persons or positions, but there is a reverence coming from those who are humble, that have a respect for life in general, in all its forms, and there's no weighing, you know. And to be harmless means that you understand your power, but at the same time, you don't feel the need to hurt or destroy any person or anything, though you realize you are powerful, right? It's understanding your power, but not having to lord it over people. That's what it means to be harmless, right? Being humble also means being known. It's making yourself known. You know, it's being in a place, in a surrounding where you're familiar. That's a place in a surrounding that's familiar with you as someone who is friendly. You know, it's being known. It's also not being greedy. Right? Being humble is having the ability to be content with what you've been provided with and not being vain about it. It's not having to have it show up in a certain way, you know, or needing more and more and more and more and more, you know, or having to have a certain thing. It's not being It's not that having things is bad, but it's learning to be content, right? With whatever circumstance that you've been given, right? If it means having lots of things, fine. If it means not having lots of things, that's fine as well. Some people are just, you know, they're born with the ability to have nice things. Some people are born with silver spoons in their mouths, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's the plight they've been given, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Now, if you've been born with a silver spoon in your mouth, hey, kudos. But don't let it define you. If for some reason you wake up one day and you don't have a dime to your name, continue to be free. Continue to live contentedly and having to earn a living, right? It's not about being haughty or vain about life, but it's about having the ability to be content with what is provided, right? In any situation, right? Today you could have $1 million, and tomorrow you may just have one. But can you be content in both situations is the question. That's what it means to be humble, to have humility. And so it's understanding that everything that we've been given has been given. It's not something that we are entitled to, that we have to have. It's not a right, but it has been given. Being humble means being free to love. Not being superficial, or again being drawn to form or symbols, right? It's not having the need to have things be a certain way. It's having the ability to see past surface level things. And then I'm thinking name brands, but anyway, you get what I'm saying. And then being humble also means not having to compete for external power. That doesn't mean that you can't take pride in your abilities and what you do well or what you've accomplished. That's not what that means. But to compete means to strive and to gain or win. But it's at all costs, and possibly even if necessary at the detriment of others, to gain some means of perceived power. That's what it means to compete. But Being humble means not having to do that, not having to compete for external power. You know, external power is seeking outside, outwardly for value before you can actually even value yourself. It's not even recognizing that you have what it is that you would be competing and striving for. You already have it. It's almost like being, almost like sitting at a table, right? And you have a plate with a steak and a loaded potato and a salad, right? And then a person right across from you also has a steak, a loaded potato, and a salad. It's identical to yours, and you're reaching over your plate to try to take what they have. When you have your own plate here, right? And that you would do anything necessary to get what they have. When you have your own plate, full plate, the exact same thing, right? It's almost like a little delulu like that, right? Like that you would be reaching outside of yourself for external power when you have your own internal power within you already, right? It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I think that's a perfect example of external power and this concept of competing for it, you know, and being willing to do anything to get it. When you have everything that you see outside of yourself within yourself, it doesn't make sense. It's delulu. But anywho. And so humble people, humility means that you don't compete for external power because you realize that you already have the power within. There's nothing outside of yourself that you need. And you certainly don't need to compete for it. So the first characteristic of an authentically empowered human being is the evidence of humility. My ears are ringing now. The next characteristic of an authentically empowered human being is forgiveness. It's forgiveness. And forgiveness is really an energy, it's an energy dynamic, and it's understanding what forgiveness really is. So first of all, just to be real, the forgiveness, okay, the type of forgiveness that still holds the memory of something done to you and not letting that go, right? You say you forgive, but you have not let go of reminding that person of what they did and what you forgave them for. That's manipulation, and that's a way that we hold power over people. Still holding on to what it is that you forgave them for as a way of manipulation. That's not really forgiveness. Right? That's trying to gain power over another person. It's external power. It's manipulation, right? Forgiveness, on the other hand, is not carrying the baggage. It's not carrying the weight of that wrong. And when we choose to forget, when we choose to forgive, it's kind of like releasing everything. Right? When we choose not to forgive, then it's like putting on dark glasses. And those dark glasses distort everything that we look at in a certain dark way. And it's also wanting everyone else to put on your glasses and see it the way that you see it. Right? Because you see it that way. You want everyone else to see it that way. It's contaminated. It's contamination. But real forgiveness, true forgiveness, means not holding others accountable for your experience. It's understanding that we're all here having an experience and we're all learning, right? We're all imperfect. It's realizing that we're all, aiming towards and looking for, we're all on this journey somewhere. And it's only when you're not holding yourself accountable for your own experiences that you look to hold someone else accountable for your experiences. And if you're not satisfied, when you're not satisfied, you try to manipulate other people, in a way that will, pull in power from them so that you can feel powerful. It's like complaining with a purpose. Complaining is a loss of power. It's giving away your power. And it's not talking about bad experiences, but it's more about the intention behind it, right? Many times we would talk about things that could be construed as complaining, but it's understanding the intention of why you're sharing. It's not that you never can say anything that, reflects something bad that happened. You can share your experiences, but are you sharing it to try to make somebody feel bad? Or are you sharing it to elicit a certain response or an outcome, right? Why are you sharing the story, And if it's for those reasons, then that's a loss of power, right? It's you giving away your power. And so there may be a need to kind of ask those questions before you decide to share something, to search your heart, right? Going back to that heart, search your heart, right? Because it's understanding that energy that we're putting out, right? That intention, right, is coming back. It's coming back. What we're sending out, that energy is coming back, right? It's bringing it right back. And so it's important to understand the intention behind what we're doing. Forgiveness means letting go. Just as simple as that. It doesn't mean you have to be a fool again and let somebody trample over you again or do you wrong again. That's not what that means. That's not what that means. But it means understanding that we are all on a journey. We're all on a path and we're all learning. We're all evolving, hopefully, towards our highest selves, our highest expression of our soul. But forgiveness is an indication of an authentically empowered human being, right? Because they don't need to use that as a way to gain power over someone. The next indication is clarity. Someone who is clear in his or her perceptions and thinking. Because clarity is it's kind of like the perception of wisdom, right? It's seeing with wisdom. How you see, it's with wisdom. It's being able to perceive and understand the illusion and let it play out. It's seeing behind the activities in front of us, right? Into the actual force of the immortal soul of a person. It's also understanding the laws of karma and their relationship to our experiences. how they go hand in hand. It's seeing the role of responsible choice and choosing accordingly each moment. Clarity is seeing the soul in action in real time. And it comes from learning through wisdom, not fear, not doubt, but bringing about compassion instead of judgment, because we understand the laws of nature. And when we look at others and we see them learning the same lessons that we've learned, and we hear, that resounding bell, that brings about that true compassion, because we understand. Yes, we understand and can clearly see how all things are working together. Clarity sees perfection in each situation and experience. It's understanding that it is for the evolution of each soul, not only the evolution, but also the maturing in the personality as well, in all of the personalities involved. As a matter of fact, like all things literally are working together. It sees perfection in everything, no matter how small the detail, no matter how small it could be. Having clarity allows us to choose consciously and know why we're making that choice that we're making. It allows us to see things for what they truly are. And when we look at wars between nations, we understand that that's resulting from intentions in operation on a personal versus a soul level that actually manifests in reality. And so when we talk about personality versus the soul, it's ego versus spirit. It's lower nature versus higher nature. It's unevolved versus evolved. It's superficial versus authenticity. It's me versus the world, or, the good of all. And when we look at the wars between nations, we understand that it's the soul aspect that's lacking, the reason why there are wars to begin with. And then we bring that down to ourselves, and we also are allowed to see how our personal actions and understanding plays a part in the overall shaping of our shared reality. Personal accountability. Each of us individually play a part of the overall evolution of our soul, which directly correlates with the physical reality of, that we share with other souls around us. And it's all tied together. And so having that level of clarity and understanding, even though we don't put it in those exact words, hopefully you understand what I mean. But this level of clarity and understanding and insight is one of the characteristics of an authentically empowered human being. And then lastly, an authentically empowered human being lives in love. Love is the energy of the soul and heals the personality, right? It heals that superficial stuff happening on the surface. There's nothing that's about love that can't be healed by it. And it's not passing, but it's in the now. It's active and present, and it's the force of the soul. Love brings peace, and it brings more than peace, actually. It brings a different way of being, harmony, concern for others. It brings light. The type of power that we're trying to transform within ourselves personally is the type of power that needs to be transformed globally, right? And there's a lot of us who draw on violence. We're drawn to violence, and a lot of that violence is centered around the fact that there is this feeling of being powerless and victimized in some type of way. But it's through the evolution of our consciousness and being aware of our emotions and focusing on empowered choices more and more that we're able to create this distance needed between ourselves and that negative emotion, and heal in a way where violence is no longer, it no longer finds a place in us. To heal, it takes love. And love is the energy of the soul. Again, a lot of us are reaching for love, but we're not even sure what it is that we're reaching for. And so we end up in, addictions because we're reaching for something. And we're hoping that it will fill us or that it will reciprocate in a way, in the same way that we are giving of ourselves to it, when it will not. It will never. It will just continue to take. And it will end in a constant loop of unsatisfaction and the need for more, of emptiness, of imbalance and empty promises. And some end up in obscure relationships, falling in love, falling into illusion, but failing to admit that we are delusional and believing that this is what we desire. Though we wake up every day and realize that we're not fulfilled, and yet refuse to deal with that truth of what it is or where we are. And so at the end of all of this is distraughtness and frustration and cycles, going through cycles and loops of unfulfillment. But it's through evolution of our consciousness. I'll say this again, of being aware of our emotions and focusing on empowered choices more and more, right? That we're able to create distance between the things that we must come to realize is not giving us what we're looking for. and ourselves. Many of us are reaching for love, but we're not even sure what it is. And that's why this awakening is so necessary. There must be a paradigm shift. There has to be a bringing down, a tower moment to completely shatter the foundation so that a new healthy foundation can be built. But again, coming back to what we're talking about, power, authentic power, and understanding where we stand in that equation. For those that would seek to overpower others, you only disempower yourself, because love seeks not to control, but it seeks to nurture. Love seeks not to dominate, but it seeks to empower. Yeah. And I just wanted to come and talk about some real stuff that may need to be heard, shared, needs to be set out into the atmosphere, set on the table for discussion, because at the end of the day, we can hold no one else responsible. We ourselves are responsible, for we have the power within ourselves, right? And so we must be responsible and accountable for our experience. Or for the lack of feeling empowered and not really realizing that the potential is within us to change that. It's just a matter of realizing it and finding truth around that. What it is, no matter what we've been taught, when we're introduced or come face to face with new information, or the truth, however you want to say that, there is a conscious decision, right, to take the red pill or the blue pill. I'll say it like that. You make the decision, right? And being authentically empowered, an authentically empowered human being, right, is where it's at. We need more of that. And so it starts with understanding. It starts with learning. It starts with being open to better ways of being, of living, and being accountable first to ourselves, and then understanding our accountability for the whole. And so it's not easy, but I believe it is definitely worth it. I can definitely vouch that it's worth it. And I believe it'll be worth it in the end, if we understand our part, because each of us have a part to play. Not only in the evolution, but also in the current being, the current situation. And I know this is going to stretch some minds, and it's going to stretch some hearts, and it's going to cause a little shifting in your seat to get a little uncomfortable, but I hope it does. It's meant to. It's meant to stretch you out of your comfort zone and to cause you to think bigger, to think past. And for some of us, we really need to find people that will challenge us. Not only challenge us, but also have our best interest at heart, right? That's necessary too. Not people that are intimidated by our power or want to usurp our power, right? Not people that lack personal power, or accountability, but someone who actually has the greater good of you at heart, and that is also willing to challenge you in that way. Someone who has been called to do this, not just getting paid to do it, someone who does the work. I feel like there's specific people that's been called to do certain things, and it's finding those people and getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of your social comfy bed, right? It's time to wake up and get out of the bed and get to work, because we've all been given something to do. And so that was the talk about power. We're in a day and time, things are heating up, the veil is being lifted, things are being shown. And it's the perfect time to continue to work on our highest self, on ways that we can create our highest expression as we live. And think of ways to continue to challenge ourselves and to continue to grow. And I'm hearing our highest timeline. Find that highest timeline. But we want to continue to challenge ourselves and grow. Not outwardly focused, but inwardly focused, so that we can be effective outwardly. So I hope this finds you in a mood today, a mood to be challenged mentally, to be challenged in your heart space and in your spirit. And I hope I said something that shook you, in a good way though. Until next time, thank you for stopping by. My name is Letty. Like, share, comment, also subscribe. If you're new and you're just stopping by to take a listen, hit that subscribe button. Also hit the bell so you'll be notified when new videos post, and you'll be reminded. Until next time, wield your power wisely.